you share one piece of career advice you wish someone had given to you when you first started out?
Great question. By the way, hi, Chris. So from my perspective, it's a simple rule actually, which is about saying yes. I think it's such a powerful and a simple concept. For me, say yes, it's particularly for us as women, right, who worry about everything and often completely deprioritize ourselves, thinking about childcare, thinking about, taking care of others, that simple concept of don't be afraid that something might change what you do, that might, involve more effort. Just say yes, go with the flow. And who knows, you might be surprised, you might learn something in the process, you might challenge yourself, right? So, it is something I tell my daughters as well. One is 16 in a sort of teenage years and very much looking at GCSEs and next sort of options. And I keep saying to her, don't miss the opportunities in front of you and genuinely, consider them, right? Say yes and be brave to say yes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's having the courage to do it and to back yourself and know that you can figure it out when you are doing it, even if you don't know now. Can you please share a pivotal moment in your career that made a significant impact to you?
Yes, absolutely. You can probably hear it in my accent. So I actually grew up in Poland, in an era behind the Iron Curtain. I was actually 5 when the sort of martial law was imposed, in December of 1981. I do remember it very clearly. And really, I was 13 when, all of the kind of Russian influence was abandoned, so I could only speak Polish and Russian. We couldn't learn Western languages because, of course, they weren't allowed, right? They weren't part of the curriculum.
Sure.
But I always dreamed of, traveling, learning, discovering new parts of the world. And, fast forward several years, I actually did my master's in teaching and foreign languages, which I think for me was opening doors to the kind of world out there. And as I took that interest in languages, and sort of patterns and that new direction really gave me a segue to the tech industry, funnily enough. And I fell in love with tech. I fell in love with, my work, and the rest is history, as they say. But I think, again, it goes back to, those pivotal moments coming in the least expected kind of situations, right? And I think life will throw opportunities your way, which you may not always think are right at the time, or perhaps they may not, align with your plans or skills or comfort zone, actually. And for me, accepting this, actually learning to accept it, was the biggest game changer in terms of my career, right? Spotting those pivotal moments, grabbing them, and then actually doing something that, again, could be completely out of the comfort zone. So, in my current
Sure.
role as a global VP of a large delivery team, with 6,000 people working in my team, I actually just tripled my scope in the last year, which I think if I said it a year ago, I'd think, oh my God, no. Now I'm thinking, yes, absolutely. What a fantastic challenge, how much I've learned and how much exposure I've had and what's next, right? So yeah, that's the kind of ethos, I live by, is to really take every opportunity that comes your way, grab it firmly with both hands, and most importantly, have fun with it.
How did you mentioned there kind of unexpectedly that you ended up in tech. How did that present itself? Where did that opportunity come from?
Oh, it's so funny, actually. So I was actually a graduate on the graduate scheme at HB, and it was one of those, you speak languages, you have experience in customer services, here's tech. And I thought, I'm not so sure how that plus that equals that, but sure, let's try it. And you know what, just loved, getting into tech and loved, understanding the processes, the tools, technology, particularly from a support standpoint, right? I think, again, we're not talking about, I'll be honest, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a super technical person, but from support perspective, it really was fantastic to have the opportunity to help others through, helping them on their kind of technical journey with whatever issues they had. So I think it was the typical languages plus customer service equals that start, in tech, which I think I've heard some others followed as well.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life, and what's your go-to strategy to overcoming them?
Great question, thank you. I think, challenges, from my perspective, opportunities to learn. I think setbacks are that kind of brilliant point of reassessment, right? It's that necessary evil. Do we like them? Not really. Do we learn from them? Absolutely. So I think the important kind of inflection points, but how to deal with them on a personal level, I think be bold, be brave, be passionate about what you believe in, be passionate, believing in yourself, right? I think, again, in many situations, women tend to put themselves down a little bit. And I think I see so many women in a room or in meetings or in scenarios where they could speak up and they don't actually. And I think in many cases, challenges are opportunities to really get out of your comfort zone and actually show your subject matter expertise. So that whole, being bold, being brave, I think it's a great approach. Another thing I would say is be determined to stick to your vision, try and remove noise and distraction.
Sure.
We're actually doing a ton of planning for 2024, like others, in terms of our strategy for the new year. And I just spoke to my leadership team yesterday, and we were just talking about focusing the entire strategy on how we overcome challenges by focusing on big rocks only. And those big rocks are the initiatives which will drive the highest returns. And that's it, right? We just focus on those. Everything else is just noise. And by doing that, we'll be sure to address what's kind of in front of us in terms of challenges and headwind. And then I think we talked about it already. It's about getting out of the comfort zone, right? We don't learn when we're not challenged or thrown into the unknown. And I think one of my favorite phrases comes to mind is being comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. It's such a simple phrase, but so meaningful.
That carries weight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for me personally, as an immigrant, I guess, that's who I am, right? Arriving in the UK, gosh, in 1998, with head full of dreams, and speaking actually poor English, that was a huge challenge, right? And it was super, super daunting, but equally exciting. And I just love that feeling of throwing myself into something new. And I try to do something scary pretty much every day to keep myself on my toes. I was actually listening to a brilliant podcast, just to give you an example. And I haven't done it yet, by the way. So you need to check in with me in due time to ask me if I've done it. But someone on this podcast said, go to a cafe, buy your, typical latte, cappuccino, whatever, but ask for 10% discount. And I thought about this and I thought, oh my goodness, you'd feel embarrassed, you'd feel silly, you'd feel like, no, and they actually said, the guy said, he's done it. He had to go in and out of the shop, a couple of times. But when he's done it, he felt on top of the world. He felt like, listen, there was no challenge I felt I could, not face head on, right? And overcome.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's something about this kind of getting yourself out of the comfort zone and doing something scary every day. If it's presenting to 1,000 of people or presenting to your CEO, that could be a little trick to go and do.
Yeah, that's it's definitely interesting that with your three answers, there's a clear commonality of presenting those opportunities to yourself and giving them a go. Because I think if you're shying away from them, you don't know what doors will open and close. Whereas if you're constantly giving yourself that opportunity, you're either going to win or you're going to learn, and which I think always helps with keeping people progressing forward in their career. So yeah, some excellent advice. I think definitely stuff for people to pay attention to put into practice. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. Fantastic questions. Thank you so much.